Once upon a time in a city called Ikram, there lived a very handsome and wealthy billionaire called Ethan. He was the only son of the most powerful billionaire in the city, who owned a chain of companies spread across the nation. Ethan had everything a man could dream of, but despite all he had, there was one thing missing. He lacked a woman who would love him for who he truly was, and not what he had. He had seen too many women fall in love with his wealth and the luxury he could give them, but none of them truly cared about his heart. And then, one fateful day, Ethan made a very bold decision to do whatever it takes to find a woman who would love him genuinely. And so, he decided to abandon his wealth, step away from his father's empire, and start living a simple life. He went to his best friend Lucas and told him about his decision. Together, they began to plan. They could not stay in the center of Ikram, where everyone knew Ethan's face. They needed a place far from the busy city. After many days of thinking, Ethan found the answer. He owned a construction company that was building houses outside the city. No one there knew his face. "That is where I will go," Ethan said. "I will pretend to be a worker. I will wear simple clothes and work at the construction site until I find a woman that will love me with nothing." Lucas agreed, and together, the two friends rented a small apartment outside the city, just close to the construction site. It was nothing like Ethan's mansion, but he had no choice. And so, the very next week, Ethan and Lucas started their new life. They dressed like poor laborers. They wore old boots with tattered clothes and joined the other workers at the dusty construction site. The city no longer saw Ethan the billionaire. Now he was just Ethan, the common construction worker. And deep inside, he hoped and prayed that somewhere in this simple life, he would meet the woman whose love was real. At first, life as a construction worker was very hard for Ethan. He was not used to this new way of living. Every morning he carried heavy blocks on his shoulders and bent low to mix sand and cement with his own hands. Sometimes his body wanted to give up. But whenever he felt weak, Ethan told himself, "This is the price I must pay. This is the sacrifice I must make." Day by day, his body grew stronger, and little by little, he got used to the life of a laborer. He ate with the other workers, laughed with them, and went home tired at night to his small room. For the first time, he felt what it was like to live like an ordinary man. But still, one thing was missing. Ethan thought that finding love would be easy. He believed that somewhere, a kind woman was waiting. Someone who would see his heart instead of his empty pockets. But as the weeks turned into months, Ethan learned that it was not easy at all. He tried to speak to different women. Some he met at small food shops, some he greeted by the roadside, and others he saw while walking home. He spoke kindly. He asked simple questions. He hoped they would at least smile at him, or maybe share a kind word. But one by one, their answers broke his heart. Some women laughed at him. "Look at you," they said. "You are just a poor worker. What can you give me?" Others turned away without turning to look at him or answer his words, as if he was invisible, while some mocked and humiliated him. Ethan was disappointed in the responses he got. It would be the first time a woman would speak to him so rudely and humiliating. One waitress even laughed and told him, "Please, go and find money before you come talking to me." It was then that Ethan realized that the only reason most of the women in his past had given him any atom of attention was because of his appearance, his name, and his status. But now, without his riches, he saw another truth. Many people cared for what they could gain, not for who a man truly was. Each rejection deeply hurt Ethan, but he refused to give up. It only made him more determined to find a genuine woman, and his friend Lucas supported him. Some months later, on a hot afternoon, Ethan was working at the construction site with the other workers when he noticed two girls walking by. One of them was Hannah. She carried a big bucket filled with snacks. The other was Rita, walking beside Hannah, talking and smiling. The men at the site noticed them too, and one of them called out in a rude voice, "Hey, pretty girl, come here!" The two girls stopped and walked to the construction site. Hannah was used to men calling her like that whenever they want to buy her snacks, even though she didn't like it. The worker frowned and asked roughly, "Do you still have meat pies?" Hannah nodded politely and lowered her bucket to sell to him. But as soon as she sold to him, Ethan stepped forward. His clothes were just as dirty as the other men, but there was something different about him. He moved calmly, as if he was thinking about what to say. He looked at the bucket of snacks. Then he looked at Hannah holding it. "Did you make these yourself?" Ethan asked. Hannah looked at him in surprise. Nobody had asked her that before. She smiled a little and said, "Yes, I did." Ethan smiled back. "They look nice. I'll take 2. He finally said. She quickly packed 2 snacks and Ethan thanked her politely, collecting the snacks. As Hannah reached out to collect the money, their eyes met, just for a brief moment. But something about the way he looked at her felt different, like he was not just buying her snacks, but observing her. But then, Ethan's eyes shifted. He noticed the other girl standing nearby. Unlike Hannah, who looked simple and sweet, her friend Rita was taller, more beautiful, and she carried herself proudly. But Rita didn't notice him at all. She was too busy looking elsewhere. Ethan turned to her and smiled kindly. "You look very nice," he said gently. Rita's eyes widened in surprise. For a moment she could not believe he was speaking to her. She stared at him slowly from head to toe, as if she was measuring him. His dusty clothes, his rough hands, and his sweaty face. She was shocked that a man like him would speak to her that way. Then she laughed, the kind of laugh that sounded proud and humiliating. "Why would a common construction worker compliment me?" she told him rudely. "Do you think we are the same? Can you even afford the dress I'm wearing? Or do you think because my friend sells snacks you can talk to me?" Her words felt like daggers straight to his heart. Still, he did not react. He just stood quietly. Then Rita turned her back to him proudly and walked a few steps ahead, insulting him more as she moved. Hannah stayed silent, looking at Ethan with soft eyes. She could see the hurt he felt, though he did not show it much. She also felt shocked and embarrassed by Rita's rude words to him. She quickly turned to Ethan. Her eyes were full of worry. "I am so sorry," Hannah said gently. "Please forgive my friend's behavior." But Ethan did not frown. He simply smiled at Hannah and said, "It's no problem. I'm used to that." Hannah shook her head quickly. "No," she said. Her voice was firm but kind. "It is not right. The fact that you are a construction worker doesn't make you less than us. You are working hard. You are earning your money in an honest way, and that is something to respect." Ethan's eyes softened even more. He was deeply touched and impressed by Hannah's words. Without wasting time, he asked her gently, "Can I know your name?" Hannah wanted to answer, but just then Rita came back. She held Hannah's hand and pulled at her arm gently. "Hannah, let's go," Rita said impatiently. "These poor men are only wasting your time. We still have many streets to walk before evening." But as Rita dragged her away gently, she quickly turned to him once more and spoke. "My name is Hannah, like my friend just said." As they walked down the busy road, Hannah turned her head one last time. Ethan was still standing there, watching her with a gentle and kind smile on his face. Lucas, his best friend, walked up behind him and gently poked him playfully. "Ethan, why are you staring at her like that?" he joked with a big smile. "Do you want to marry the meat pie girl or what?" Ethan gave a small laugh, but he didn't say a word. Instead, he turned quietly and walked back into the building site. He sat down and wiped the sweat from his face with a piece of cloth. His eyes were calm, but his mind was busy. For the first time since he started his mission, his heart was beating faster because of a simple girl carrying a bucket of snacks. "She didn't look at me like the others do," he thought quietly as he smiled to himself. There was no pride in her eyes, only warmth. Unlike the other women who looked at me with anger and dislike, as he sat there thinking, Lucas walked up to him again. He laughed and touched Ethan on the shoulder. "Ethan, I'm serious," he joked again. "You like the meat pie girl, don't you? I saw the way you kept looking at her." This time Ethan did not deny it. He replied softly, "Maybe I do," he said. "She seems very different, but I need to be sure. I need to know who she really is before I take another step." Lucas laughed. "Well, if you keep buying meat pie every day, she might just notice you." Ethan laughed lightly, but his heart was already full of hope, and deep inside, he wished for one thing, that he would see Hannah again. Meanwhile, as Hannah and Rita walked down the busy street, Hannah's mind was far away. She was no longer thinking about the hot sun above her. She was thinking about Ethan. There was something different about him. The way he looked at her as she walked away, it wasn't like the other men who whistled or shouted silly things. He looked very gentle and calm, and then she remembered his soft, polite, "Thank you," when she gave him the snacks. Most of the workers never bothered to say those words, but he did, and he had even asked for her name before Rita pulled her away. "Hannah!" Rita's sharp voice broke into her thoughts. "All these low-life poor men," Rita began with anger in her voice. "They can never offer you anything good, only more hunger. You have no future with them." Hannah slowed her steps with a deep frown on her face. "But you didn't have to embarrass him, Rita," she said quietly. "He was only trying to be kind to you." Rita rolled her eyes in disagreement with her words. "Kind? Please. Do you think kindness will pay for food? Do you think kindness will pay rent? Aren't you tired of this life? Walking all day in the sun, selling snacks, counting very little money at night? Kindness will not change that." Hannah stayed quiet, but she felt a sharp pain in her heart. Yes, she was tired of struggling, tired of walking for hours just to sell enough to survive. But even with all that weariness in her heart, she could not stop thinking about Ethan's gentle eyes, about how different he had felt from everyone else. Maybe not all poor men are the same. No one really knows what the future holds. Hannah said at last. Rita laughed mockingly and said, "There you go again with that soft heart of yours. One day your soft heart will bring you trouble. As for me, I know what I want. I'm waiting for a man who will change my life. A man with money. I don't care what he looks like. As long as he has riches, that is enough for me." Hannah didn't answer anymore, but as they walked in silence, her heart felt heavy. She wanted to believe that there was more to life than just chasing money. But when she looked at her old slippers, and then at Rita's tired, hungry face, she couldn't deny that money was what they needed most. And yet, somewhere deep inside her heart, she wished she knew why she couldn't stop thinking about Ethan's face all afternoon. That night, after the day at the construction site, Ethan sat alone in the small apartment he had rented for his disguise. His mind was on Hannah. He could still see her face in his mind. He could still hear her voice, telling him that hard work was something to respect. Tonight felt different from all the other nights, because for the first time, he felt hope. Just then, the door opened, and his best friend Lucas stepped inside. Lucas had been his closest friend for years. He didn't need anyone to tell him what Ethan was thinking about. He could see it on his face. Lucas folded his arms. "Why her?" he asked quietly. "Since we began this mission, you've met many women. But none of them stayed in your mind like this. What makes her different?" Ethan was speechless. He didn't know how to explain it. He only knew there was something about her that felt real. The way she had spoken to him with respect, and the way she had looked at him as if she understood his struggle, as if her words were from personal experience. And this made Ethan even more curious. He really wanted to know her better. Lucas shook his head gently. "Be careful, Ethan," he warned. "You don't even know her yet. You can't let your heart run ahead of your plan." That night, Ethan could not sleep. He lay awake for a long time, thinking about Hannah's smile and voice. And when he finally closed his eyes to sleep, he prayed in his heart, "God, please let me see her again tomorrow." The next morning, Ethan arrived at the construction site much earlier than usual. The sun had barely risen and he hadn't even eaten breakfast, but he didn't care. On the outside, he tried to act normal, picking up tools and greeting the other workers. But deep inside, he was restless. His heart was not with the work. His heart was waiting. He wanted to see Hannah again. Yesterday felt too short. He had barely spoken to her before Rita pulled her away. But he hoped that today might be different, and he might get another chance. All morning, Ethan tried to focus on his job, but his eyes kept wandering toward the road outside the gate. Every time someone passed by, he looked up quickly, hoping it was Hannah. But then disappointment would follow when it wasn't her. Again and again, his heart lifted and dropped. Lucas, who knew exactly what was going on, watched him with a playful smile. He walked up to him. "Still waiting for the meat pie girl, aren't you?" he said, laughing and shaking his head. But Ethan said nothing. The other workers, who had no idea what was going on, joined in on the jokes. "Was her meat pie really that sweet?" one of them asked, laughing. "Are you sure she didn't put a love potion in that snack?" "Why else would Ethan be so desperate to see her again?" another worker said, causing everyone to burst into laughter. Ethan only smiled, not even bothering to deny it, because deep inside, he knew the truth. It wasn't the meat pie that brought him back to the gate again and again. It was Hannah, and he hoped, with all his heart, that she would show up again today. Then, a few hours past noon, Ethan was already beginning to lose hope. Maybe she wouldn't come today. Maybe yesterday had been his only chance. But then, he saw Hannah. She was walking slowly down the street with her bucket of freshly fried snacks balanced carefully on her head and sweat on her forehead under the hot sun. And this time, she was alone. Her friend, Rita, wasn't with her, and Ethan silently thanked the heavens for it. His heart leaped in his chest. This was his chance. He quickly wiped the sweat from his face and wiped his dusty hands on his trousers, trying to clean them as he waited impatiently. But his eyes never left Hannah as she came closer. When she reached the construction site, a few workers gathered around her at once, eager to buy her snacks. Ethan stayed back for a while, letting the others go first, while watching her with quiet admiration as she sold her snacks. When she was done selling to the crowd of workers, Ethan finally moved forward. And then, when their eyes met, Hannah smiled shyly. "You came back," he said softly. "Yes," Hannah replied gently. "Business must go on." Ethan laughed and stepped a little closer. "Give me 4 today," he said. "I enjoyed the last one so much, and I've been waiting." Hannah's eyes widened in surprise. "You've been waiting for me?" she asked softly. Ethan nodded, smiling in a way that came straight from his heart. As he collected the snacks from her, he said her name slowly, pretending he was trying to remember. "Hannah, right?" he asked. She smiled brightly and nodded her head. "I'm Ethan," he added, but of course she already knew. She had heard Lucas call him by that name yesterday. But somehow, hearing him say it himself felt different, like an introduction to something deeper. For a moment, they stood together at the gate, talking about little things, like the snacks she sold, and even joking about how Lucas had teased him the day before. She apologized once again for her friend's rude behavior, but Ethan told her it was fine. It wasn't a long conversation, but it was enough to make Ethan's chest feel lighter, and enough to leave Hannah smiling as she adjusted her bucket on her head and turned to continue down the street. When she finally walked away, Ethan didn't move. He just stood there, watching the road where she had disappeared, as if he could still see her shadow standing there. Lucas came up behind him again, smiling like a playful child. "Ah, it's official," he announced in a playful, dramatic voice. "Our boss, our friend, is in love." Ethan laughed, but he didn't deny it, because deep inside, he knew Lucas was right. And he was already looking forward to meeting her tomorrow. Ethan was in a good mood for the rest of the day. He found himself smiling more than once as he worked alongside the other men. Hannah was the first woman who had spoken to him with kindness since he began his mission to find a wife. Every other woman he had met had either ignored him, mocked him, or treated him with open hatred, just like Rita. But Hannah was different. She smiled and listened without looking down on him. And in that small act, she gave him hope which he hadn't felt in a long time. And somewhere across the city, Hannah was smiling too as she washed her empty bucket and prepared for another day of business. She didn't understand why her heart had been beating faster all afternoon, or why Ethan's soft voice kept echoing in her mind. She only knew that she liked the way he spoke, calm, intelligent, and hopeful, despite the fact that he had absolutely nothing. Later that night, Ethan sat quietly in the small apartment with Lucas. Lucas had been watching him all day, trying to read his mind. Finally, Lucas broke the silence. "You're falling for her. In fact, I think you're already in love," Lucas said confidently. Ethan suddenly looked up, abandoning his thoughts. "What? No, I just admire her. She's different, that's all." "Exactly," Lucas said with a serious face. "And that's why you need to know the truth. You need to test her deeper, Ethan, before your heart runs too far ahead." Ethan frowned at his words. "Test her? Isn't it too soon? We just started talking today. I barely know her." "That's the point," Lucas insisted. "You don't know her yet. What if she's like the others? What if she's only acting kind because she thinks you might have something to offer? You can't afford another disappointment." Ethan became silent. Lucas's words struck deeper than he cared to admit. He remembered how easily he had been deceived before, and it had left a bitter taste in his heart. But he didn't want to believe that about Hannah. For a long moment, Ethan just sat there, staring at the floor, thinking and weighing his options. Finally, he cleared his throat. "All right," he said quietly. "Tomorrow, I'll test her. I need to know who she really is before I take another step. Lucas smiled. Good. Better to learn the truth now than when it's too late. But when Ethan lay in bed that night, he felt uneasy. He told himself it was the smart thing to do. Yet deep inside, he was scared. The thought of testing Hannah made him strangely nervous, as though he already feared what the result might be. The next afternoon, Hannah balanced her bucket of snacks on her head and set out for business as usual. But this time, Rita was with her. Rita hadn't stopped talking since they left the house, after Hannah told her about how nice Ethan was. I really hope that poor construction worker is not there today, she said. Hannah, don't waste your time with such men. You deserve better than men who have nothing. But Hannah didn't answer. She just kept walking, praying she would finish selling her snacks in time today. When they reached the site, many workers rushed to buy snacks as usual. Ethan waited for Hannah to attend to all the workers before he stepped forward. This time, he didn't wear the same warm smile. His eyes looked heavy, and his face looked sad. Hannah could tell that something was off about him. Are you okay? She asked softly, worried about him. Ethan hesitated before speaking, playing his part, just as he had planned and rehearsed with Lucas earlier that morning. I want to buy just 2 meat pies today, but I don't have money on me right now. I promise I'll pay you tomorrow when you come. Before Hannah could say a word, Rita jumped in like fire. What? She shouted. So, you don't even have money for ordinary meat pies, and you are here talking to us? Not to mention you even tried to hit on me the other day. You should be ashamed of yourself. Ethan lowered his head, pretending to feel embarrassed. But inside he felt angry. Rita's harsh words cut deep, not because he was truly broke, but because this was exactly the kind of reaction he had been afraid of getting. But then, Hannah's gentle voice broke through the noise. Ethan, she asked, looking him straight in the eyes, do you want only 2 because that's all you need? Or because you don't have enough money right now? For a moment, Ethan was speechless. No one had ever asked him such a question, not with care or genuine concern. He nodded slowly. 2 is okay, he said quietly, still pretending to be ashamed of himself. Hannah smiled as she opened her bucket of snacks and placed 2 meat pies in a paper bag for him. You can pay me tomorrow, she said kindly. Then she turned to Rita, who was still insulting Ethan. Rita, that's enough. If he had the money right now, he would have paid. Please stop insulting him. But Rita wasn't finished. She folded her arms and hissed loudly. This is exactly why we are still poor, Hannah. You keep pitying people who have nothing to offer you. This one will eat your snacks on credit today, and tomorrow he'll eat them for free. You'll see. Hannah's face filled with embarrassment, but she didn't take back her words. She simply lifted her bucket, balanced it carefully, and walked away after wishing Ethan a good day. Rita followed her, still grumbling loudly, but Hannah kept walking without another word. As they left, Ethan stood there, holding the paper bag of snacks in his hand. His heart was heavy with emotion. In that moment, his heart felt full. He had gotten the answer he was looking for. Hannah had chosen kindness, even when it cost her. And that simple act of compassion made Ethan more certain than ever that she was different. The very next day, Ethan kept his promise. When Hannah came with her bucket of snacks, he placed the money in her hand for the snacks he had taken on credit. Hannah smiled as she received the money. She thanked him for his honesty. And from that day, something small began to grow between them. Whenever Hannah came to the construction site to sell her snacks, Ethan always found a reason to be close by. At first, it was only a few minutes. And soon, standing together for a few minutes turned into sitting for half an hour. And half an hour often turned into an hour. Rita stopped accompanying her whenever she would stop by the construction site. Her hate for Ethan was obvious, because he appeared poor. Ethan and Hannah spoke about many things, about Hannah's little business, and the hard work Ethan said he was doing on the site. Little by little, a gentle and honest friendship was built. The workers noticed their laughter sometimes, but Ethan didn't care. One quiet afternoon, after talking for a long while, Ethan took a deep breath and said, Hannah, tell me about yourself. I want to know your story. Hannah looked down for a moment, unsure if she could trust him. But something about the look in his eyes made her feel safe. I'm the only child of my parents, she began. My parents. They sold almost everything they had to send me to school. I owe everything I am to them. I promised myself I would make them proud no matter what. Ethan's eyes softened as he listened. He didn't interrupt. My best friend is Rita, Hannah continued. We went to the same university. But after graduation, I couldn't find a job. Life was hard, so I swallowed my pride and started frying snacks. That's how I survive now. Ethan's eyes stayed on her. Every word she said made his respect for her grow deeper. Rita sometimes follows me when I go out, Hannah added, smiling. She says she can never hawk snacks like me, but she doesn't mind keeping me company. Ethan's heart moved in a way he hadn't felt before as he thought to himself. Hannah was a woman who carried her hardships with grace, who refused to let poverty or circumstance define her spirit. And with every story she shared and every smile she gave him, Ethan found himself falling deeper in love, not for her beauty or anything else, but for the person she truly was. And as time went by, Ethan could not hide it anymore. He had fallen in love with Hannah. And it wasn't only because she was beautiful and kind, it was because of her mindset and the way she thought. Hannah believed that a person's current situation didn't define them, that what truly mattered were their future plans and the effort they put into chasing them. Ethan remembered one afternoon when she had said it so simply, with a soft smile on her face. Where you are today is not where you have to be forever. And those words had stayed in Ethan's heart ever since. He admired her courage, her determination, and how she stayed kind, even when life gave her every reason to turn bitter. And what Ethan did not know was that she too had fallen deeply in love with him. But not everyone was happy about their growing closeness. Rita, who had always dreamed of marrying a rich man, mocked Hannah every chance she got. She laughed at Hannah whenever she saw them together. So this is what you've reduced yourself to? She mocked. Being friends with a poor construction worker? You call this friendship? One day you'll regret wasting your time with him. Her words sometimes made Hannah sad, but she never stopped meeting Ethan. Her heart told her she was where she needed to be. And so, days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. For almost 3 months, their friendship grew deeper with each passing day. Until one fateful morning, as Ethan watched Hannah laugh at something he said, he felt a quiet certainty rise within him, and he felt it was time. He had seen enough of her heart to know she was genuine, and he was ready to open his own heart fully. That day, Ethan decided he would tell Hannah that he loved her. And more than that, he would tell her he wants her to meet his father, not as a poor worker's friend, but as the woman who had captured his heart forever. On that fateful evening, Hannah had just sold her last meat pie. She was ready to go home when she stopped by the construction site to bid Ethan a good night. But as she turned to leave, Ethan's voice stopped her. Hannah, wait, he said. There was something in his voice that made her heart skip. He wasn't smiling like he usually did. His expression was very serious. She quickly turned around to face him. Is everything okay? She asked softly. Ethan took a deep breath and slid his hands into his pockets to hide how much they were trembling. Hannah, he began. His voice was quiet but firm. These past weeks, they've changed me. And you've been the reason. Hannah was confused, but she remained silent, listening to what he wanted to say. I came here searching for something, Ethan continued. I didn't think I'd find it in you, but Hannah, you've shown me kindness, respect, and friendship when you had no reason to. You've made my days brighter, even when they were long and hard. He paused, and Hannah's heart began to race with curiosity. I've tried to hide it, but I can't anymore, he said finally, looking deep into her eyes. Hannah, I think I've fallen in love with you. Her eyes widened in shock. Ethan took a step closer. His voice was soft but steady. I want you to meet my father, he said, not as a stranger, not as just a friend. I want him to meet the woman I believe I've been waiting for all my life. For a moment, there was silence between them. Hannah's heart was pounding so hard in her chest. She had not expected this, not so soon, and not like this. I don't know what to say, she replied with a trembling voice. You don't have to answer me now, Ethan quickly said. Take your time. Think about it. I'll wait for your answer tomorrow. He gave her a small smile and told her to head home before it gets too late. But as Hannah turned and began to walk away, every step felt heavy. Her heart was mixed with different emotions. She didn't know whether to laugh, cry, or to do both at once. As she stepped into the small house she was sharing with Rita, Ethan's words kept echoing in her heart. "Hannah, I think I've fallen in love with you. And I want you to meet my father." Her heart had skipped a beat when he said it. Ethan had always been kind and respectful, but she had never imagined he would speak of love. While she battled with her thoughts, Rita showed up. She could tell that Hannah was different, so she kept persisting until Hannah finally told her what happened with Ethan that evening. "Ethan told me today that he's in love with me. He wants me to meet his father." For a moment, Rita just stared at her. Then she burst into loud, humiliating laughter. "I told you! I told you he was up to no good! See, I was right! That fool is dreaming above his level." A poor, common construction worker falling in love with a woman as beautiful as you? She threw her hands in the air, still laughing. "Hannah, don't be naive. You deserve better. You should cut him off now before you waste your time. That man has nothing. And you're here entertaining his nonsense?" But Hannah didn't laugh. She stood very still. Then she said quietly, "I can't do that." Rita's laughter stopped immediately. "What do you mean you can't?" Hannah turned and looked at her with a soft smile. "I think I've fallen in love with him too," she said shyly. Rita's eyes widened in shock. "Hannah, are you out of your mind? This is love we're talking about, not charity." But Hannah barely heard her. Her thoughts were far away, replaying every moment she had shared with Ethan. His quiet smile, the patience in his voice, and the way he always looked at her with respect instead of pity. For the first time in a long time, she felt truly loved and appreciated. That night, as she lay on her bed staring at the cracked ceiling, her heart was racing as she thought of what she would tell Ethan the next day. And somewhere across town, Ethan was also wide awake. Sleep refused to come. His mind kept circling the same questions. Would Hannah say yes? Or would she reject him, listening to Rita's sharp tongue and bitter warnings? He turned on his side, then on his back, then on his side again. He was restless, his heart pounding. But he told himself one thing. If Hannah should reject him, then it means all women are the same, and he may never find a woman that would love him for who he truly is, and not what he has. But he continued thinking until he finally dozed off in the early hours of morning. For both of them, tomorrow will change everything. The next morning, Hannah woke up feeling anxious. She had stayed up most of the night, thinking about Ethan's proposal. Even though she really liked him, she also knew Rita was right. What she needed at this point in her life is a man that can take good care of her and also assist her financially, not a man who is struggling just like her. As she sat in front of her small apartment, frying the snacks she will sell that day, Rita was inside the room, preparing herself for a job interview that morning. One of her relatives had sent her a text the previous night, informing her about an opening in a very big company that requires someone in her course of study. When she finished dressing, making sure she looked as beautiful as she could be, she went outside to meet Hannah once again, who was still frying her snacks. "I trust you would make the right decision. Ethan, or whatever his name is, he doesn't deserve a beautiful, hardworking graduate like you. Think of your parents and your future. You are their only hope. Don't choose love or feelings over wealth. Be wise." Rita advised her deeply before she left for the job interview in the city. As Hannah continued baking her snacks, she became confused. She didn't know what decision to take, if she should listen to Rita telling her to reject him, or listen to her heart telling her to accept him. But by the time she was done frying her snacks and was prepared to walk down the street to sell her snacks, she had already decided on what answer she will give Ethan, and she hoped deep in her heart that she was making the right decision. Meanwhile, at that same time, Rita was sitting nervously in the waiting area of one of the biggest companies she had ever seen. The place looked so luxurious, with a beautiful interior, like a heaven on earth. "This job could change my life. I must look ready," she told herself as she waited patiently to be called into the interview office. But as she looked around the waiting area, she saw many huge picture frames hung on the wall. One of the picture frames caught her attention almost immediately. It was a picture of a man, tall and handsome, dressed in an expensive suit that looked like it cost more than Rita's entire wardrobe. Slowly, Rita stood up without even thinking and walked closer to the picture frame. When she got close enough to see the face clearly, her eyes widened in shock and surprise. She could feel her heart beating faster than ever. "No, it can't be," she said out loud. The man in the picture frame was Ethan. But he didn't look anything like the dusty, sweaty construction worker she had insulted again and again. His hair was neat, and his eyes looked confident and powerful. Rita's hands began to shake. She turned around quickly and hurried to the receptionist's desk. Her voice was shaking and she was visibly shaking as she pointed to the picture frame. "Excuse me," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "That man in the picture. Who is he?" The receptionist looked at the frame she was pointing at, then smiled brightly. "Oh, that's Mr. Ethan Blake," the receptionist said with pride. "He is the only son of the owner of this company, the heir to everything you see here. People say he is one of the most eligible bachelors in the city." Rita's knees started to shake. Her palms were wet with sweat. She could hear her own heartbeat in her ears. She walked back to her chair and sat down slowly. Her legs were shaking under her. Her mind was running wild. Ethan Blake, the rich heir. All this time, he had been pretending to be a poor construction worker, and she had insulted him, humiliated him, and mocked him to his face. She had also advised her friend, Hannah, not to accept his proposal. She felt regret and pain all at the same time. But as she thought about it the more, her mind slowly started to think dark thoughts. And she began to tell herself, what if he marries me instead of Hannah? What if Hannah was about to become the wife of a billionaire while she, Rita, was still struggling to find a job? He looked at me first and complimented me first. What if we were meant to be, but Hannah is trying to steal what truly belongs to me? What if he is the answer to the prayers I've been asking God all these years? Rita's heart became filled with jealousy, hatred, and anger, all at the same time. She started thinking selfish thoughts, and instead of trying to help her friend, she started thinking of herself. Immediately after the interview, Rita did not even wait to hear if she got the job. The moment she stepped out of the company building, she stopped the first cab she saw. She jumped inside and gave the driver their home address with a shaky voice. Rita's eyes burned with anger and jealousy. She thought to herself, if Hannah became his wife, she would be the one living in his world of money and power. No! Rita said sharply to herself. Hannah could not have him. She would not have him. Not after all the time I had spent dreaming of marrying a rich man who would change my life. And now, that the chance was right in front of me, it was slipping into Hannah's hands. I must do everything I can to destroy that relationship and have him for myself, she told herself. Now that everything is about to change, will Hannah follow her heart and accept Ethan's love? Or will Rita's poisonous words turn her against him? What will Rita do now that she's discovered Ethan's true identity? And how far will she go to destroy her best friend's happiness? And when Ethan finally reveals who he really is, will Hannah still believe in his love? Or will she feel betrayed by his secret? Thank you so much for watching this story up to the end of the first part. I truly appreciate you. If you enjoyed this story and would love me to continue it, type "continue the story" in the comment section. I'll be reading every single one of your comments. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and turn on your notification bell so YouTube will notify you immediately when I upload the continuation. Thank you once again for watching, and see you in the continuation.